not get there with you. But I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
50 years later, the memory of King's assassination is still fresh in the mind of civil rights leader Reverend Jesse Jackson, who saw it unfold. We spoke to Jackson at his Rainbow Push Coalition headquarters about King's death.
For life and death, but he was not a man afraid to die or afraid to live.
Action.
Why Jesse Jackson ain't getting no get back? Why Al Sharpton ain't getting no get back? If my friend gets knocked off, I'm supposed to respond. At least that's the code of where I come from. In the 60s, we didn't get no material resources. And so in that 30-year time span, the projects were still the projects. And then instead of getting resources, we got a crime bill. And so when I said the thing that I said about those individuals, Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, he ran for president in 88. And what did he, okay, Jesse ran for president in 88. Guess who else ran for president in 88? Joe Biden ran for president in 88.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes.
But he never actually marched in the civil rights movement at all. Ultimately, it was accusations of plagiarism in his speeches.
I did not know that was a Robert Kennedy quote. My mistake.
He got kicked out the race because he lies too much. He plagiarized a whole bunch of college papers.
Joe Biden?
Joe Biden. Yep. So
that's important information that you just said.
You get your little butt on somewhere.
That's a clip.
And then he comes in here, and Jesse Jackson, he wants to do the Rainbow Coalition that takes our black experience being descendants of slaves and not getting no resources and making it this coalition of everybody's included, Browns and the queers, everybody's united. And so as soon as he did that, you can look and you trace it back from 88 till now. Browns got political power, queers got political power, and guess what? Black folks are still poor and don't own nothing in America.
Right.
And so when you ask me about these people who sold out black folks, like, I put a name on it, put it on you.
I think Jesse Jackson was scared. I heard someone, I used to work in a federal penitentiary. It wasn't really a penitentiary, but it was a halfway house. So I got to talk to federal inmates.
You was a CO?
I wasn't a CO. I worked in the kitchen, actually. I was a cook, you know what I'm saying? I'm not Rick Ross. But it was a private institution, but it was for federal people, federal halfway house.
Did you at least give them an extra cookie?
Yeah, at times, I might give you a little extra orange juice or whatever. But one of the guys said, when you're fighting the federal government in the courts, it's like fighting a gorilla. It's like fighting a big old gorilla. And the chances of you winning is very small. I think that when blacks went into this civil rights movement, we were not united because you did have someone like a Malcolm X who had some different ideology. You had the Big Six, the preachers, the Southern leader, the Southern Christian Leader Conference, whatever. You had them saying that this is the direction we should go in. And then where was the financial backing? The financial backing, of course, was white Americans, Jew Americans that was funding these movements. So, like you said,
it's uncomfortable to say the thing,
right?
But they're also the immigrant, and they were also trying to be in alignment through a struggle. When I say slavery, they say Holocaust,
right?
And so that we're politically aligned, but they just had funding. When we talk about slavery, we didn't know how to read. Everything, our entire culture was stripped away from us, and we had to assimilate into the idea of being a servant.
Right.
When the Jewish person came to America, they already came with literature, they came with skills, they came with trades. And so they were able to build a community fast, independently, because these are skilled people who already had a community. And that gets glazed over in America when we talk about American descendants of slaves. They say FBA. Hey, we're original Americans. We OGs.
This is the conversation we need to have so we don't have a distorted view of where we are politically today. Why are we having this conversation? Because now you have this DEI thing coming up. You have this rollback of affirmative action where, to be totally honest, statistically, we've been last in everything, and it will continue that way because we're not having the correct political discussion, and we don't understand where we got off track. And that's why we're starting with civil rights, and then we progress up today and see where we are. Again, our movement has been specific to us for so long, or was supposed to be, but to get traction, we invited or allowed other people to come in, mainly with their money, to distort what we were supposed to be getting. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to let you get it. Here's what we have to understand. Why are we having racial discrimination conversations to begin with? Because we are so woven in with racism. Remember, we did have slaves. We had to come up with a reason why we should have those slaves. Yeah, terminology matters.
So as soon as we use the word race or racism, then all of a sudden, anybody who feels like they were discriminated against based on the way they look, then the conversation dies. And so we have to be like lineage.
Right.
Like I came from a slave.
Right.
And so my relationship to America is very different than the immigrant's relationship to America.
Right.
And so all of a sudden I say race, and then the Jamaican American and all these other different nationalities of people, they just come and say, since I look black, I'm black. And I had this conversation with a white man. He was like, why are we always talking about race? I'm like, how you look matters. I'm like, I can go to Brazil and people look like me, but I'm not Brazilian and they're not American.
Right.
They just got the same skin tone.
Right.
Hell, I go to Louisiana right now, and those Creoles, they talk extremely different than the way I talk.
Right.
Man, I might not even understand these people sometimes.
Because we kept politics at race, we're here now to where race really doesn't matter, or it can't matter anymore for a society to progress. And we've talked about, we allowed that to be so much part of our political plight that now you have 33% whites at UT, 25% Hispanic, 22% Asian, 4.5% black. And guess what? Now they're saying, hey, it worked. We don't need it anymore. But it did not address the people that it should have addressed. It did not address that. That's why we have to say, hey, we need to have some political definition.
Why are we ever fighting for education in the first place? Like the people that we're talking about, you look at America right now as a whole, and 60% of Americans don't got any type of college degree. Like 60% of Americans.
Right.
And so even then, the allure of going to college was somebody just sitting there saying, like, I got a degree, it'd be great if you had a degree too. Now we got a bunch of people, niggas, man, there's a bunch of nigga people with sociology degrees, psychology degrees, and if you don't get a PhD, it's almost like worth nothing in the job market. And so if we don't even explore, we're paying for a product that doesn't give us no dividends. We're sold an idea.
I do think education matters. Let me say this. I do think education at the elementary level, like basic education matters. I think access to higher education matters.
You say it matters, but America says it doesn't matter. 54% of Americans 50% of Americans, 54% of Americans right now can't read at 6th grade level, and they all went to a public school.
I don't think that makes education matters less. This is where it does matter when we start talking about where we've grouped people based on race. We just talked about it out here. You got a white man that go welding school. He can make an average income and have a house. But as a black man, you can't. Like, why?
I'm so sorry. Because the average income in America is like somewhere around $42,000 for a man.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. If you're a welder, you're making $77 as an apprentice. Like all of a sudden, you just take a person with no education and give them a trade, and they assimilate into a nice life.
Correct.
But we don't get that.
Right.
And so I'm just saying, so when we start talking about race and all these other things, like I can show you through tangible prison is a rite of passage for a black man in America. 1 in 3 go to the penitentiary.
Terrible.
The man is valuable in America.
Right.
So they profit. They're going to either put you in a trade, they're going to send you to the prison. You have to participate in one of the institutions, or you have to.
This is why I need black leadership in all parties. We need black leadership like us. You have it here politically to talk to you and dialogue with you about where does our political fight need to start? Where does it need to progress? Because we have in the Democratic Party mainly who talks to black people all the time. We see this in votership, how you voted for the Democratic Party this election cycle. It doesn't even cater to black men. It's mainly black women, it's gays, it's white feminism. That does not address the issue in the black community, because if you can save the black man and restore the black man, you're going to restore and save the black community. But no one is addressing the things that we're addressing here right now. Why is this not? So Nancy Pelosi, you're going to give undocumented. I saw that clip, by the way, of Bill Maher saying, but they're undocumented. Like even he's not like, but they're undocumented. You're going to give undocumented workers or undocumented immigrants housing, but you have not said to yourself that the people who vote for you the most, which are black people, have showed you that. Why haven't y'all not offered that to black people in some capacity?
Because we never asked for it. They said education and we said education. Like you get what you asked for. When they took the lives of these young black men, Michael Brown and all these individuals, we said, give them body cams. We voted to give police departments more money instead of saying, give me that money. Like This is the response. And so when you look at the leadership, I can't go to Democratic Party and expect them to conform to me. I can't go to Republican Party and expect them to conform to me. I have to be able to have my own political agenda and say this. So Ralph Nader, who ran for president, he put the boot on the car industry. He put seat belts and safety features in the cars because he just showed them by the numbers how many Americans were losing their lives in vehicles.
Right.
And so all he said was, you need 1% of the total population to get change. We've seen that with the gay community. We've seen that with the trans community. If you're loud enough and powerful enough, then somebody's got to listen to you.
Right.
And 1% of the population in America right now, it's like 3 million people. It's not very large at all. And so when I say 10 million men to march for actual reproductive rights for men to abolish child support so I can have my autonomy as an American citizen, I'm taking that 1%, turning it to 3% because we'll be 3 times more powerful. You cannot ignore 10 million men.
Right. And I'm glad that you said that because I believe that we're living in a time where our political, I would say, beliefs, I would say where we're aligned in our moral compass, it does extend outside of just black men. So when you talk about child support, that affects all men. So just imagine if we say, hey, all men, if all men are created equal, all men should, get this. In this country, we know that this percentage of people make this. We should be able to live at and function at this rate, and we need to fight for that. What does that do for our entire community? Because the one thing that I do think that hurts us right now politically is the topic of race. Once we peel that back and say, hey, I'm an American. I'm not just some black man. I'm an American. I deserve to be living here. I deserve to have internet that works. Guess what? All men, we deserve that. And you know what? There's another man somewhere in middle America that's experiencing what I'm going through. We can change that.
When my dad talks to me, he gives me a perspective from a time period. He's like a walking, living time capsule because he shows me history. George Foreman is a great heavyweight champion from Houston, Texas. You hear me? And so he was a big, poor, dumb kid who didn't have... You send me to school, if I can't read when I'm 12, it doesn't really matter that much. So they sent him to Job Corps. Job Corps was instilled in America to help poor boys in America so they learned a skill to participate in our economy. And guess what? When Republicans come in, they want to cut funding, and so they cut Job Corps and they get Job Corps out of here. And now all these active big George Foremans who were the heavyweight champions of the world is now on the streets thumping because I can't take that energy nowhere.
Right.
And so when you see Kamala Harris and she has a total agenda for women, when was the last time they had a male agenda?
Right.
They said, hey, men are taking their lives. Men are sleeping in their cars. Men are alienated from their children. At every statistical category for bad things in America happens to men more than any other group of people.
I'm gonna tell you something else. We do not respect ourselves enough to understand that when you brought up Ralph Nader, when we get together and cause a ruckus, we can make change.
I don't even say ruckus. The most powerful, peaceful movement the world has ever seen, because that's fair. That what makes them scared.
Protest. We can say protest because we have constitutional rights to a peaceful protest. So I'll say this. Matt Gaetz, this is the guy that had these accusations of him, right?
Right.
He's also accused of being a white nationalist and having some white national ideas. Guess what he just did? He said that he doesn't want to have the nomination for district attorney anymore because I feel he came under so much scrutiny. We said, we don't want that. We don't want to see that. And probably from quite a bit of people. So all this scare we had about Donald Trump coming in with his administration to take over and make things change. If DEI doesn't work, if certain things don't work for us, we get together and say, hey, that's not working. We want to see a change and we're going to protest for it.
I'm tired of hearing about accusations. Hey, if Matt Gaetz committed a crime, arrest him and criminally prosecute him. Like, we stop. If a man is not being prosecuted for the thing that you said he did, then don't ever say it. I don't even want to hear it. This is just all. If they say racist, then all of a sudden it's like an ambiguous thing, and your whole political career just goes away. A girl said a thing. Hey, tell that girl to go tell her mama, press charges, and send that man to prison. Like, stop playing with these people. If you want to hold politicians accountable, I don't want no rumors. I don't want no accusations. Hey, put that man in penitentiary.
I'm going to slide this in too real quick. We ain't going to stay on it too long. Hey, man, blessings to TD Jakes. Hopefully he gets better. I don't want to see anybody that has some type of issue or ailment on stage.
Hey, no Diddy.
No, I'm just saying, I don't know what happened. There's accusations around him, but I am seeing like quite a bit of information where people are happy to see him on live stream go down and have some type of ailment that could have him in the hospital. So I'm only using what you said about, hey, if someone did a crime and they get prosecuted for that crime and convicted, then they should go to jail. All this prosecution and conviction
That was a weird shout out.
in the public, but because it's like, hey,
TD Jakes.
why do we get to this place where
Man, when
we
you
want to
say-
see
'cause-
somebody just go down
That's
and
not
just
even
be
saying that.
Yeah, you know.
These people, TD Jakes, Al Sharpton, these poverty pimps who use the pulpit to mislead black people, man. I have a problem with these individuals. I have a problem with the Pan-Africanists. I got a problem with the black
I definitely
pastor.
got a problem with Pan-African.
Like, these individuals take their position of power and they play politics to make a profit. And I'm tired of these profit pimps making money off of black people.
So I hold people like, okay, TD Jakes.
Get your hand out my pocket.
I've never heard the prosperity gospel is a thing, right? And mega churches is a thing, but I've never heard TD Jakes be the type of minister we've heard Al Sharpton be. Like, Al Sharpton, you are an informant for the federal government. We know that. You are some kind of wonky politician. So when you get, to me, he represents many of the crooked black preachers we've experienced, or just preachers, period, we've experienced in the past. So TD Jakes and Joel Osteen's in another category. You can have your opinion of them. I think so, because they say, hey, I'm an inspirational.
No,
I'm
that's
here to
not-
bring you inspiration. I don't think
Here's number one.
when you get Al Sharpton, that's somebody that wants you to vote a certain way, or he
You're
participate
talking about
in
politics.
politics.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
money. The church is a business institution. You don't have to be taxed on this business institution.
Right.
The fastest way to get rich in America, if I'm one person, if I get 10 people to give me money, I get 10 times as rich. If I'm a church leader, and if I get 100 people to be in my church, I get 1,000.
Let's start a church.
And
We could do it.
bro, you're not saying. Once I found out
We
that
Christians.
Once I found out that a church was a profession and these pastors get paid money, my whole worldview changed.
Right.
I'm like, oh, so to be a best pastor, you got to sell the best message to get
Yeah.
the people to come sit down.
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
So I don't have anything against TD Jakes. I just understand what their business model is, and their business model is to take 10% from poor black people to continue to get rich.
Do you feel like someone like an Al Sharpton, though, we should be more critical of that, because he knows exactly what he's doing. He has a method to his madness as far as politicians or being political. Because when it comes to being a Christian, you have the choice to do that or not. I think when you're in a political view and you're saying, this is what I'm gonna do for people and I can get this done, and you're doing it behind the veil of Christianity, I just think that's worse.
Man, when you're living a life, you don't have to tell nobody that I'm the best putter or best golfer in the whole entire world. You don't have to tell nobody this. And so I just start looking at people really side-eyed. If you say, man, I really love my wife. My wife is incredible. My kids are incredible. I'm like, why are you saying it out loud? Like, your behavior should show that you love your wife. You should go home. And you shouldn't even be out with me right now. You should be at home doing arts and crafts with your children or whatever.
Right.
And so when these people start saying, I'm a Christian, my faith is this, my faith is that, man, Jesus never walked to nowhere and said, I'm a Christian. He just did the thing.
Right.
And so when I go read, when you say Christians, when I read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all I see is Jesus doing. And now sometimes when the people were saying what Jesus said, it was somebody else. It wasn't Jesus saying I said. Jesus did the thing, and he was the person. And I see a lot of politicians, I see a lot of pastors, I see a lot of leaders. They're not doing the thing.
Right.
They're talking. When you be powerful in America, you gotta be of service. When you know how we're gonna get 10 million men to help us? We're gonna help 10 million men.
Right.
We're gonna have the political rhetoric that's gonna change their life. And when you get 10 million men, white, black, brown, whatever your nationality is, when I get that child support up off your neck, all of a sudden you can breathe again. And you're like, thank you guys so much for helping me.
I think one thing we can agree that's more dangerous than all of this, though, is Pan-Africanism. That right there is something like, we'll deal with Al and TD. We'll get that right. We'll figure, because that's an ideology change. But this whole Pan-Africanism thing, like, people really want to pull away from being an American citizen and unite with these other groups that calls us names and crap like that. Like, nah, man, I ain't with that. I think Dr. Umar, stop. Like, I think that's the one thing. You say a lot of good stuff, but the one thing I have an issue with you, Dr. Umar, on is this Pan-African mumbo jumbo crap you be pushing that's not gonna work. It ain't gonna never work, and you should know better than that.
Hey, Mr. Umar, why aren't you over there in Africa and trying to stop some of those civil wars that are going on? I'm not even playing. It's like 20 or 30 civil wars happening right now on the continent of Africa between African nations. And you over there talking, you're telling me that I'm one of them, but they're over there knocking each other off.
Where your wife at? Where your wife and kids at? I'm gonna keep asking you that. Where's your wife and where's your kid at? Before you start pocket watching if somebody got a bunny or not, where your wife at?
But this is how when your politicians don't have to be of service, when they don't have to be of action, they just, because Dr. Umar's a big brother. He's like 6'4", a very boisterous individual who went and got some education. And so once you learn how to play politics, when you're big, inarticulate, who's going to challenge you in a room? And when you from Philly and you had to go through the thing, you know what I'm saying? Your location does matter. If you grew up in an inner city place, you were in a classroom with more people and you had to thump more, you were at more risk for aggression.
Right, that's correct. When
I walk down these streets, I'm passing up big transsexual people. I'm passing up big crackheads. You ever seen just a big swole crackhead and they got pectoral muscles and Popeye guns and he's high as a kite and he's in La La Land. Say, cuz, let me get $1.
Riding bikes all day and taking plants. That's ridiculous. Yeah. No, I don't have an issue with intellectuals coming together because I feel like we do have that. But the part that all of these guys are missing, which is kind of going to bring us back to the original point with civil rights, is this. You will take the bag and go about your business so you can have your family in this elite group, but you forget the people is what got you there. The people's plight, what the discussion is, got you into that arena to talk, and you get paid and you forget to do the most important thing. Guess what? Like churches, people are going to church because they're hurting, they're in need, and what do? They support their pastor. I think there's a way to get people to support our leaders, our movements, our cause, and whatever it is, but I've said this before, we need money. Money has to be everyone needs money. It's a tool, but where is the money going? What are you doing with the money? Where is it going? Because look at Elon Musk. He's a uberly rich guy and he's supporting whom? So we can't say that there isn't money. Money will support all sorts of causes. It doesn't just have to go one way. What happened to our leaders specifically, though?
Who are our leaders? When we talk about some of these individuals, you're talking about very professional individuals.
Most of them were preachers.
So how is a preacher trying to battle politicians who don't went to law school, who have been formed by the greatest political minds in America? And I got this guy talking about John chapter 7. Like,
hey, I ain't gonna lie. That is true. How did we end up being a group of people to have specifically we had religious leaders leading?
They play with your emotions. They get you angry, get you sad. That's what the gospel preacher does.
Right.
He comes in and grabs your attention, takes you to the highest of highs, grabs your soul, make you feel good. And you left side a good word as you put a knot in the collection plate. This is the ethos of the American church. You go into these other places, man, it'd be solemn, holy, holy. It's a business transaction. These people coming over here to make relationships and to make sure the community is sound.
I would argue that our rights, our political movement going through the church, if we look back, may have been erroneous. That may not have been, even though we did need our church involvement. I think we need everybody involvement. We're going to see that in the political landscape. But I mean, for it to go specifically through black preachers, that might have been the issue.
And all I got to do is look at, even right now, look at the climate of men. If you're not chastising your preacher, if you're not holding Jamal Bryant accountable, if you're not holding these individuals accountable, then they could just say and do whatever.
Ray J hold them accountable.
And this is just our society right now. Right. So, man, people get real uncomfortable if you're in the room and you don't agree with what they're doing. When you know that their lifestyle is not in alignment with the thing they're saying and you speak up on it, nobody wants you around. Right. Historically, they're going to take you out. If you Martin Luther King, they're going to say, because you said the boule, the talented 10th, they're less than 10% of slave owners were black. But when you get, there's always been the smart, intellectual black man who was able to gain his freedom, participate in the institutions that made other groups wealthy, and he also profited off of us. When I say that out loud, I could also say about other groups of people during World War II. Lots of your people also participated in the genocide of your own people and made profit off of it. It's historically accurate.
They don't want to hear that.
It's historically accurate.
You become a conspiracy theorist when you, and we know what you're talking about. Anybody that knows a lot about World War II understands what you're talking about.
They understand what I'm talking about.
This is what I'll say. This is my point. I'm gonna pass it to you. This is like, one of my last points. Hey, information is here now. We have information. We have dialogue. I'm myself even coming across other podcasts that are having a similar dialogue for a different demographic, but it affects us all. And we need 10 million men to tune in. We need 10 million men to tune in. We need 10 million men to participate in the comment section and dialogue and say, hey, I agree or disagree, but this is my issue. I have an issue. Nobody's talking about me, because what we're saying is we see you. We see you. We see that we're Americans and we are aligned politically to some degree. And we have some dissatisfaction of things that we need to talk about. There is some contentious issues out here that we need to dialogue about.
Give a man a house and a car and a job. He's going to get a woman, and they're going to make some babies. This is the foundation of all of existence. You're the greatest American alive. I mean, go do something great.
The greatest American alive. The greatest American alive. The greatest American alive. The greatest American alive. The greatest American alive.